This is Abigail with Sparkle and Shine Guidance. Today, I wanted to talk to you as we are building up to this very powerful lunar eclipse in Scorpio about the energy, about the astrology. And this is all from my perspective to share with y'all. Take what you want, leave the rest behind. And let me know in the comment section if you know where Scorpio is in your chart, specifically 14 degrees of Scorpio. And I would love to share a little bit about where that is in your chart. So yeah, we're talking about 14 degrees of Scorpio. And then also we're talking about 14 degrees of Taurus for your whole generation. So specifically knowing where Scorpio is in your houses and what planets or placements you have there. If you have planets or placements, and when I say that, your rising, as somebody says, their Scorpio rising, midheaven, IC, DC, is going to have a huge impact. But then also if you have personal planets there, if you have, for a lot of people have Uranus in Scorpio, obviously other planets, personal planets, the more personal the planets or the placement, the more strongly this is going to be felt personally. So the personal planets are the sun, moon, Venus, Mercury, and Mars. And then, of course, Jupiter next and Saturn. Or just you becoming aware of how other people are perceiving you. And this is something that I really want to talk about and touch on with this lunar eclipse, because it's really important to understand that projections are inevitable and projections are also dangerous. Projections block us in our consciousness from being able to see and understand our own emotions and our own drives, and therefore projections can cause harm to others. And we see this all the time within family, within families, within communities, within our larger collective, where we're projecting the need for something to be a certain way and we're projecting it onto someone. Prime example of this is the whole incident that just happened with the Dalai Lama, where something comes out that's a little bit jarring and disturbing, and people rush in to create a story or a narrative to make someone be able to be projected upon in a certain light. And this is regardless of how you feel about that whole situation. This is happening left and right all over the world right now with media. Media rushes in to soothe and calm and placate to projections. And then we move on to the next thing without really taking a moment and to see in our body how something feels, to check in with our discernment, to check in with our own need for someone to be something. I could never believe that about this person. That's projection. And likewise, the other way is around, projecting onto someone in a negative light. And this happens a lot to children. We project upon children, we project upon our siblings, we project upon our family. And that can cause harm, because if we're projecting that someone is just needy or is just emotional, some of those needs can go overlooked, and we can put someone in a box that without actually meeting their need because of our own projections, because of our own ability to sit with our own pain and with our own inability to sit with our own sensitivities. So I know this is kind of like going around, but let me bring it back around to this lunar eclipse. So Scorpio has to do with not just ourselves, it has to do with each other and how we transform together. It's the alchemy, it's the triggers, it's the wounds, it's sex, death, rebirth, the phoenix rising. And these things can't happen in isolation. They can't happen with just ourselves. We need to have that projection. When we can acknowledge it, when we can be aware of it, we need to have that to grow and to flourish and to be able to look at things in a different way, to understand that we are being perceived, that we are being projected upon as well, and that this is just part of the human quality, right? And at the same time, when we can be honest and truthful and really look at these things, that's when we grow. So Scorpio asks us to get uncomfortable, whereas Taurus season is all about comfort, and Taurus energy is a lot about comfort and coziness and wanting to feel a certain way. Scorpio is about being uncomfortable. It's about war. It's about despair. It's about transformation. And we can't transform when we are clinging to our comfort blanket. That's not when we transform. We think about the metamorphosis that a caterpillar goes through. It's uncomfortable, it's gooey, it's gross, and then they come out transformed. So transformation happens when we get uncomfortable, and when we're okay with being uncomfortable, when we're okay confronting conflicts, when we're okay speaking our mind, when we're okay sharing something even though we know it's not going to necessarily be the popular thing to say. It's not going to placate to the masses. So it's really important to understand that Scorpio is necessary, and we've been in this larger cycle of the South Node in Scorpio for the last 15 months or so, and we will be in the cycle until July. And this is where the eclipses have been happening for the last 15 months or so. They've been in South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus, where we are moving towards that Taurus energy of our own boundaries, our own needs, what we have, what we don't have, and really those kinds of themes around Taurus. But we've also been clearing and purging off of the Scorpio South Node. And the Scorpio South Node is very uncomfortable matter. It's things being brought to our attention so that we can clear them, so that we can heal them, so that we can transform them. We can't move forward without acknowledging our past. We can't move forward without being authentic and real and truthful. And sometimes that truth is painful. That truth is not something that's necessarily pretty with a bow on it. It's very uncomfortable. It's very painful. And Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And Pluto is about taking our pain and going full on into it so that we can transform it into our power. And this is Pluto's path. Pluto is about evolution. It is about the most uncomfortable places that we have to travel to in order to meet versions of ourselves, rooms deep within our subconscious and our consciousness that are ugly, that are filled with shame and guilt and gnarly material. And we have to go into that pain, and we have to look at it, and we have to feel it. And once we do, we access and we gain more power in that room of our subconscious. The shadow is anything that we're unwilling to acknowledge and look at, or unable to acknowledge and look at. And Pluto asks us to go into those places. And when we deny access to those places, we accumulate more pain. We accumulate more blocks. We accumulate more karma. We accumulate more confusion. And, Ram Dass says, our karma is our mind. And if we think about this in a large scale, when we are overcomplicating things, or making things really confusing for ourselves, or we deny help, or we deny access within ourselves, or we deny love, that is from the pain that we're unwilling to meet and look at within ourselves. So this is a very important lunar eclipse, and it happens on May 5th. It's at 14 degrees of Scorpio, and it asks you to allow yourself to illuminate the painful places within you. And it asks you to illuminate the painful places wherever this falls in your chart, in that area. So transformation is coming through right now, and a lot of people want to deny this. A lot of people want to deny the truth. A lot of people want to deny what we're being asked to look at. And when people are denying looking at the ugly, or denying looking at certain things because they just can't believe it, or they don't want it to be true, we're creating karma. So I would just ask you, whatever comes through this week, that you not turn away from it, that you not turn away from it and instead turn on the TV, that you not turn away from it and instead, eat your ice cream or do the things that are the comforting things for you, that you allow yourself to go into these places that are a little bit less comfortable for you, knowing that you can handle it, knowing that you will be stronger because of it. Now, this full moon lunar eclipse on May 5th in 14 degrees of Scorpio, and then the sun in 14 degrees of Taurus. The sun is also conjunct two major things here. Uranus, which has been on a long journey through Taurus and has a lot to do with these sudden ahas that make us uncomfortable. And Mercury retrograde, which is Mercury has been retrograde for the last week or half a week, and will continue to do so until I think it's May. I don't have my dates, but I think it's like May 18th. I have it on a different post. So it's conjunct those two things. The sun, our conscious awareness, is conjunct the sudden change maker and sudden aha, and Mercury, which is about processing. And when it's in Taurus, it's a lot about our felt sense, and it's a lot about our throat chakra and recognizing where we've silenced ourselves, where other people have silenced us, and really retaking ownership of that voice that you have and why you have it and what you have it for. So it's really important to understand those two things, that we have those planets in Taurus. We also still have the North Node in Taurus driving us to our voice, our truth, our felt sense, where we feel safe in our body, where we don't feel safe in our body. And then we want to pay attention to the two rulers. I mentioned the modern ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. The ancient ruler of Scorpio is Mars. And Mars is in Cancer, and Mars in Cancer is not a comfortable place. I have this in my birth chart. My son has this. It's an uncomfortable place, and it's being so aware of what's happening under the surface that no one wants to talk about or hear about, being so aware psychically of things, and in that way feeling shut down because of it, because there's so much that, we're talking about water signs here. So the full moon being in Scorpio, that's a water sign. That's our emotions, and it's also that the things that we don't have words for. The emotions that we don't have words for, the felt sense, the psychic nature that is like, sometimes there's no words to explain certain things. And I truly believe that this is why the English language is like, it leaves things out. And when we leave things out, it's harder to get those things across. And a lot of the spiritual connection piece has been disconnected. And part of that is our lack of language around certain things. So when we don't have a way to communicate certain things, it doesn't mean that they're not still there, and it doesn't mean that they're not showing up in our world. And so these water signs that were really highlighted at this time. So we have the full moon in Scorpio, lunar eclipse, and then we have Mars in Taurus trining this full moon, and Mars in Cancer. I said that wrong just a minute ago. So Mars is in Cancer, and it is creating this trine to the full moon, and it's also creating an opposition. It's a very wide orb opposition, but an opposition to Pluto. So both planets that are ruling Scorpio are in an opposition. And in an opposition in the chart, Pluto has just gone retrograde. It's 0 degrees of Aquarius, which is a critical degree, and it's going to go into Capricorn again. And we're going to be revisiting a lot of the things that we don't want to revisit. And we're going to have to deal with this until we kind of create that resolution, until we are able and willing to go into those uncomfortable places, until we're willing to feel the things that we've told ourselves that it's not acceptable to feel. I have a whole other thing on that. And if you're interested in joining with me for 10 days, I have the Open to Love, Open to the Divine 10-day challenge with me, where each day we uncover a different layer of where we have been blocking or resisting our own light and our own love and our own ability to receive more in our life. So if you're interested in that, let's work together. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, this is a huge aspect of what I help you with, is being able to see things from a different perspective, specifically related to those really uncomfortable emotions that no one wants to talk about. The emotion of guilt, shame, remorse, resentment, anger, frustration. We alchemize those so that we can gain more access to our own power. And this is very much what this lunar eclipse is about. So we have that opposition between Pluto and the beginning degrees of Aquarius and Mars in Cancer. And this is a very much creating this agitation. Not only do we have a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is naturally about the uncomfortable, but then we have Pluto and Mars stirring the pot of aggression, anger, people not wanting to feel the uncomfortable emotions, and the only emotion that's comfortable to them is anger, is lashing out. And so you do want to be cautious around this time of May 5th. Do not engage, do not engage, do not engage. Pull back, spend more time with close loved ones, maybe at home. Do not engage, okay? This is a really negative time to try to initiate something new. And I find it very fascinating that in England, the crowning of the new king is on this lunar eclipse, which to me signifies the end of an era of endings. It's like it's clearing off of the south node. We're purging. It's a purge point. And therefore you want to be careful because other people are going to be purging shit that you don't want to be expose yourself to, okay? It's like a nightmare that I had recently where this woman was like coming at me and she was like projectile vomiting and she kept trying to talk to me. And I was like moving back and she kept trying to talk to me. And every time she'd go to talk, it was like projectile vomit. And I was like, no. So that is the energy of this lunar eclipse, is that work on your own purification, purging. Do not engage with unsteady people that might be purging things that you don't want to be exposed to, okay? So with that being said, it's also very much highlighting the sexual astrology, okay? And I want to do a whole thing. I've been wanting to do it. I used to do like the sexual astrology one-on-one readings or couples readings, but I really want to do a course specifically about this because it's so evident in the astrology that this is an important thing to talk about. So we have this lunar eclipse. It's almost exactly squaring Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith, I have a whole video on Black Moon Lilith. I'll post it to my story so you can watch that. Basically, the first wife of Adam that was too powerful. We're talking about power. We're talking about personal power. We're talking about collective power. We're talking about power. And Black Moon Lilith is the powerful aspect of the feminine. She's the fierce aspect of the feminine. She's the oozing sexuality aspect of the feminine that has been repressed, stuffed down, shunned from society. And so she was the first wife of Adam. She was too powerful. She was shunned. And then Adam took a younger, more placatable wife, Eve, to become the first woman, which is all a lie because the first woman is Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith has to do with your own sexual power, your chi, your energy. And so wherever she is in your chart, she highlights where you might have been taught to push down, shun, or shove away certain aspects of yourself. And she can also highlight where, when you re-engage with that and when you honor and when you become like integrated in that, you're going to shine in a much more powerful way. So Black Moon Lilith is squaring this lunar eclipse. Black Moon Lilith squaring an eclipse is something that we have to be cautious of because there is a lot of power. If you're not telling by the way that I'm like speaking about this lunar eclipse, it's very powerful and it's meant to be a purge. And so because of that and because there's a square to Black Moon Lilith, we want to be aware and cautious of purges having to do with certain people in society, cancel culture, different things that might creep up around this time. So to just kind of hold yourself back and check in with your discernment around different things that might come up, not only at this lunar eclipse, but then in the month of May. The month of May astrologically is very busy and big energy, and I'll talk more about that later. But so to really just check in with yourself, check in with your own intuition, and then check in with why does this feel uncomfortable? What is it about it that feels uncomfortable? And what is it within myself that is still unsure about going into this energy? So for instance, when we see something highlighted in the news or we see something highlighted in the collective, to really kind of go into yourself. Everything that's happening in the collective, you're also being invited to do the work on the interior. And when you do that, we start to see shifts to the collective. The shifts in the collective don't come from the same places that the problem comes from. There's a whole quote on that. I forget what it is, but it's like something really basic that everybody knows that quote, right? You can't fix the problem by the same mentality that the problem is solved, right? Or you can't solve a problem, whatever, from that same place that the problem came from. I really botched that, but you know what I'm saying. All the shifts happen in here to create the shift out there. And that's why the open to love, open to the divine journey to me is so vital in that process. Okay. So if you're interested in that, tomorrow is the last day for early registration. You can reach out or you can check the link in my profile. Okay. So square to Black Moon Lilith, really paying attention to just your own places where you believe certain things. A belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. And you choose to keep thinking. And you choose to keep thinking. So I can't touch on that in here, but I have a whole other video on Black Moon Lilith I'll link to in my video. And if you leave a comment there, I'll respond to you. But thank you for asking. So a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. You keep thinking it. You keep thinking it. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We are in a time where the collective is in an insanity point. It's literally insane out there, y'all. And when we are in a place where there's so much insanity, the only answer, the only thing that we have the power to change and to control is what's happening in here. So I really invite you to go deep within. If you'd like to journey with me, please reach out. You can check in about different offerings that I have. If you're not already on my mailing list, this is a great time to get on there because there's going to be a lot coming out in May. And lastly, the other square, it's a looser square, but it creates this grand cross energy. So I have to talk about it. So it's a looser square, but it's to Eros. So we have all the fixed signs pinged at this full moon. We have Black Moon Lilith in Leo. We have the sun and the moon in Taurus. We have Uranus in Taurus. We have Mercury in Taurus. We have the North Node in Taurus. We have the South Node in Scorpio. And then we have Eros over there in Aquarius. We also have Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, but that's not close enough to call it a square, okay? Still really strong and really important because it's the ruler of Scorpio. Eros has to do with passion, has to do with love, burning desire. But Eros can blind us as well. It can blind us through desire. We've all had that experience where we've been so infatuated by something or someone, and years later, or months later, sometimes days later, we're like, what spell was that? Because you see the person, or you see the thing that you used to love, or that you used to be all about, telling everyone about, and you're like, what was that about? What spell was I under? What is that about? That is the energy of Eros. So as much as it can be life-giving and energetic and the fire that we need to like push something out into the world or be something that we want to be, it can be just as damaging, where we can get swept up in a wave, or we can get swept up in a type of thinking or a belief or a way of being or a religion or anything around just kind of going head on into something without much thought or much logic or much like long-term thinking about it. Because it's square to this lunar eclipse, I just want to err on the side of caution and tell you all to err on the side of caution. It's not to fearmonger. It's not to be negative. It's just to say there's no greater time to use discernment And it's not also a great time to welcome new people into your world. Clients, dating, new friends. I would just be glad if someone comes in, but tread cautiously. There is a lot of just like weird energy. Not only that, but I didn't talk about the other water, which we have Saturn in Pisces and we have Neptune in Pisces. So this is kind of like the cult, the makings of a cult. So I want you to be very cautious. Someone comes in and they're like talking to you about this really passionate thing that they have going on and they want you to do it too. Just like check in with your discernment, check in with yourself. So Eros and Black Moon Lilith, when I talk about like sexual astrology, those are very much like sexual astrology. Like what gets you passionate? What lights you up? What is like your burning desire? What is like at the heart of your true authentic self? What just like pings you and makes you feel so big and so juicy, right? And at the same time, because it's a lunar eclipse that's purging off the south node in Scorpio, we want to be cautious of overusing anything, overusing sexuality, overusing any substance, overusing any tool such as social media, overusing anything, okay? And so come back to yourself, set some space to tune into yourself and to nature, drink a lot of water, maybe plan on getting some home time or some nature time, not necessarily being in big crowds. I wouldn't recommend that. And I would also recommend taking the space to tune into your intuition. This highlights more like psychic intuitiveness, awarenesses, ahas. All of those things are really beautiful and really wonderful, right? And then I also have the Open to Love, Open to the Divine 10-day challenge that I'm offering May 10th. It's after this eclipse, so once the things get illuminated and come up, all the material's there for you to go within and journey and open to more love and more from the divine and receive more for this spring season. So I'm very excited about that. Take good care of yourselves. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And remember, we don't need to be afraid. There's nothing to fear except fear itself. We just want to be aware. And that awareness can lead us to beautiful places.